All right, Happy New Year, everyone, and here we go. 2025 is here, a new year for Canadians, and almost certainly the last year for Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister. Barring a cataclysmic event in Ottawa, 2025 will be the final year of the Liberal era and the start of a new Conservative chapter. But 2025 is likely to be one of the most consequential years for Canada this century. A looming trade war with an incoming Donald Trump administration will cast a very long economic shadow over this country as the geopolitical situation in the world still remains up in the air. So on this show, we will preview 5 things that we expect to happen in 2025, but before we do, be sure to drop a like on this video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, and the comment question for the episode is this: will Justin Trudeau lead the Liberal Party into the next federal election? Let me know your answer in the comments below, and let's get into it. All right, first prediction, and the most obvious of all of them, Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre. By this time next year, we will have a new Conservative government led by Pierre Poilievre, and we expect that the federal election will result in a sweeping majority government victory for Pierre Poilievre. He will come into power with a very strong mandate from the Canadian people to reverse Justin Trudeau's economic track record. The federal election is going to be very interesting this year. There's going to be lots of little surprises and stories that come out about Pierre Poilievre, maybe some more that come out about Justin Trudeau, but are we even sure Justin Trudeau will lead the party into the next federal election? We have our own prediction about that later on in the show, which we will get to. But I'm predicting the Conservatives to pick up several seats in Toronto, pick up seats in Quebec as well, and nearly sweep Atlantic Canada. It could be one of the largest mandates for a Conservative government. And at this point, you would have to think that in order to reverse the inevitable result of a Pierre Poilievre majority government, the opposition research on Pierre Poilievre would have to be quite scathing. It would have to be quite nuclear for it to have any dent in what is certain to be a victory. So I'm predicting that by the end of October, we will have a new government in this country. I don't anticipate the Liberals calling an early election at this point. If they're going to lose anyway, why pull the plug early? All right, prediction number 2, Donald Trump will cripple the Canadian economy with a 25% tariff in just under 20 days. He said he would do it on January 21st. That's not too far from now, and it doesn't appear as though Donald Trump is willing to reverse that threat. So what's that going to look like? Well, almost certainly there are going to be thousands of jobs that are lost in this country. The Canadian dollar will continue to drop, and the tensions between the United States and Canada will only get worse. The constant Trudeau-Trump jabbing and barring, the trolling from Donald Trump will continue. The general anti-Canadian sentiment from Donald Trump, the joking about Canada as a 51st state, will almost certainly continue. And I think Trump is going to keep the tariffs in place for long enough for the Canadians to grovel at his feet, begging for mercy, until he lifts the tariffs. He's going to try to send a message here. A message that he can do whatever he wants to Canada in the lead up to the USMCA renegotiations, which, as we predict, Pierre Poilievre and his team will lead Canada in. So we expect that the tariffs are going to be quite damaging, and they are going to be put into place. This is not just an empty threat. Although it's not as if these tariffs will play well with the United States. Americans are going to quickly realize that their gas prices are not lowering, as Donald Trump promised. Americans are going to realize that their electricity bills are going up in price. They too are going to suffer quite significantly from a 25% tariff on Canada. But in my opinion, for Donald Trump, he wants to see Justin Trudeau suffer. He wants to try to get Canada to fall in line. That's all part of his agenda. All right, prediction number 3, and maybe the most controversial prediction of the 5 here. I am predicting that Justin Trudeau resigns as Prime Minister, that he does not lead the Liberal government into the next federal election. The caucus revolts, the cabinet revolts, the loss of Chrystia Freeland and other cabinet ministers is deeply damaging to Justin Trudeau. He has no way back. Even the Toronto Star was calling for his resignation after Chrystia Freeland's resignation a few weeks ago. There really is no way back, in my opinion, for Justin Trudeau. And I think the long walk in the snow is very soon to come. So what happens after that? Well, my prediction is that someone like Dominic LeBlanc or maybe Francois-Philippe Champagne will lead the government into the next federal election. That Justin Trudeau will force one of those two guys to hold the bag and take the L. Be the next Kim Campbell in Canadian history. As I've predicted for quite a while now, why would Justin Trudeau do this to his legacy? His legacy has already been severely tarnished, but he could at least go out on top. He could at least go out saying that he's never lost an election. And for a man like Justin Trudeau, a man with such a fragile ego, you would think that going out on top, being able to leave without being kicked out, would be his best option, would be the option that would play the best with his ego. So there we go. That's quite a bold prediction. My belief is that Justin Trudeau will resign from office. Prediction number 4, and I hope to see this, I genuinely do hope to see this. I am predicting a ceasefire deal to end the Russia-Ukraine war very soon. I'm predicting that Donald Trump's diplomacy with both Zelensky and Putin will result in a ceasefire deal, which will ultimately result in a land concession from Ukraine, an eastern land concession from the Ukrainians, as well as a commitment from NATO to have Ukraine not join the alliance in return for an agreement from Russia to not attack Ukraine. Will Donald Trump be able to end the war in 24 hours? No, but I am predicting that very quickly he is going to be able to end the Russia-Ukraine war with a ceasefire. That all the killing can stop and that we can get back to some level of normalcy in Europe. All right, my 5th and final prediction for this year is that 2025 will see a lot of protests in Canada. The international student protests will continue. The pro-illegal immigration protests will continue because this government is going to force itself to be in a position that they will have to deport tens of thousands of people. They will have to do more, but I'm pretty sure they're going to start deporting tens of thousands of people, and that's not going to go over too well with all of those people who are slated for deportation. So the protests are going to continue. They will likely end up in Ottawa protesting, and the Canadian people will not have any of it. In fact, it'll be interesting to see how the federal government responds to these increasing protests from permanent residents and undocumented immigrants, because the federal government has for the longest time been seen as very pro-immigration. They're going to have to change that image if they're going to follow through with this deportation plan, which they almost have to at this point. So they're going to have to come down with a firm hand. They're going to have to kick these people out of our country, and it's going to happen. Whether or not the bureaucrats in Ottawa and the elite in this country who have benefited from the mass immigration agenda like it or not. Now, will the Conservatives, the government in waiting this year, cheer on the federal Liberals as they deport tens of thousands of people? Or will they perhaps try to take a different approach on immigration and surprise everyone? It's not as if there isn't precedent for the Conservative leader to oppose deporting international students. The other protest that we are almost certain to see this year, more anti-pipeline Indigenous protests. With the incoming U.S. administration that is very pro-oil and gas, I believe that the federal government, along with the Alberta government, are going to start laying down pipelines. They're going to start building more pipelines, and they're going to try to force that issue through. So we could see a resurrection of the Wet'suwet'en protests. We could see more land back protests, which will once again require a heavy government presence and an intervention to stop those protests. So we're in for a chaotic ride, Canada. It's going to be very exciting this year. Over the next 12 months, there's a lot that's going to be happening. If many of my predictions come true, then I'll take it as a victory. If Justin Trudeau holds on, well, it'll just be more interesting in my opinion. But let me know what you think of my predictions. Do you think that some of them are correct? Do you think some of them are wrong? I'm sure many of you do. And that's quite all right. That's what we're here for. And if you have your own predictions for this year, let me know in the comments as well. But until next week, that is all we've got. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratioed.